Imagine growing up in a world where the rules were already written for you. Not by you, not even by your parents, but by generations of limitation, fear, and survival. Picture a child, their every thought, their every action, guided not by their own aspirations, but by an invisible hand that continuously reaffirms one harsh truth. This is all you will ever be. Now, think about this. What if the reason some people never escape poverty isn't because they're lazy or not smart enough, but because they were trained not to escape? What if, in a world built by systems of control, the very concept of prosperity is foreign, actively suppressed, and replaced by the constant reminder that this is all there is? Today, we'll reveal the most invisible and dangerous form of control that exists in our world, the systems that condition people to remain poor. These are not just economic traps, they are psychological prisons woven into the fabric of society, deeply embedded in our culture, and often passed down from one generation to the next. Poverty, in this context, is not merely an economic condition, it is a belief system. It begins in childhood, carefully constructed by everything from family dynamics to the hidden curriculum of our education systems. And most dangerously of all, it becomes a script for life, a script so deeply ingrained that those living by it don't even recognize it as a script. It feels like a fixed reality, not a problem to solve. If you stay with us until the end of this journey, we'll reveal the silent program that's running most people's lives, the one that teaches them they will never have enough. This might just flip the way you see money, education, and even yourself. It's a story of how the system not only perpetuates poverty, but often actively prevents escape. Before we dive deeper into this eye-opening exploration, take a moment to reflect. What were you taught about money growing up? What beliefs about wealth were instilled in you, whether knowingly or unknowingly? Your insights might resonate with someone else, and together, we can begin to unravel the complex layers of limitation that are holding us back. Now, let's begin our journey. The patterns that keep people in poverty aren't accidents. They are learned, and anything that is learned can be unlearned. The financial struggles faced by many people are not just unfortunate accidents. They are actively exploited by systems designed to profit from desperation. Predatory lending institutions like payday loan companies, credit card corporations, and other high-interest lenders thrive by manipulating the vulnerable. These businesses operate on a simple but deeply harmful principle. They profit by keeping people financially stuck, often in cycles of debt that seem impossible to escape. Take payday loan companies, for example. These businesses offer quick loans to individuals who need cash urgently, often due to unexpected expenses or an inability to make it to payday. At first glance, it seems like a lifeline for someone in a tough situation. However, these loans come with astronomically high interest rates that trap borrowers in a vicious cycle. If a person can't pay back the loan on time, they are charged even more in fees and penalties, forcing them to take out new loans to cover the old ones. What begins as a small, manageable loan soon escalates into an unmanageable burden, often doubling or tripling in size. The credit card industry works similarly. While the ability to buy now and pay later seems like a convenient option, the reality is that most people end up paying far more than they borrowed. High interest rates, hidden fees, and penalties keep people from ever fully paying off their balances. The financial system benefits from this. The longer it takes for the borrower to pay off the debt, the more money the lender makes. In this way, the financial struggles of individuals become a permanent revenue stream for corporations. What's most insidious about these predatory systems is how they manipulate emotions like fear, shame, and desperation to control people. Many individuals who resort to payday loans or rely on credit cards do so because they feel like they have no other option. They are under pressure to keep up with bills, provide for their families, or survive from one paycheck to the next. These emotional pressures, fear of not having enough, anxiety about falling behind, shame about being unable to make ends meet, drive people to make decisions that ultimately harm them. They take out loans they can't afford, accumulate more debt than they can manage, and ultimately, feel trapped by their financial situation. Predatory lenders understand this dynamic and exploit it. They prey on the fear and desperation of individuals who are just trying to make it through another day. These institutions know that the more desperate a person feels, the less likely they are to make rational financial decisions. The system knows that the shame of financial struggle often prevents people from reaching out for help or seeking alternatives. and it uses these emotions to ensure that the cycle continues. The real tragedy of these systems is that they create a market out of poverty itself. They profit from people's financial insecurity, making money from the very struggles that others face, instead of offering solutions to help people rise above their circumstances. These systems keep them dependent, locked into a cycle where the only way out is to pay off the debt with more debt. It's a design that ensures that people remain trapped, unable to build wealth or gain financial freedom. But it's not just payday lenders and credit card companies that profit from struggle. Entire industries are built on the backs of those who are financially vulnerable. The medical industry, for example, makes billions off of people who are unable to afford care, offering high-interest loans or payment plans that push them deeper into debt. The education system, too, profits from students burdened with student loans, knowing that many will take decades to pay off their debt. These structures, though pervasive, are not natural. They are the result of intentional decisions by those in power to maintain economic inequality. The system thrives on keeping the poor financially ignorant and dependent, ensuring a steady flow of profits to those who already have wealth, while the majority struggle just to keep their heads above water. However, awareness is the first step toward breaking free from this cycle. When you understand how these systems operate, how they prey on your fear and desperation, you can begin to make more informed choices. You can stop seeing yourself as a victim of these systems and start reclaiming control over your finances, shifting from dependence to empowerment. From the very beginning, the conditioning starts. It is subtle, often unspoken, but it shapes the way a child will perceive their world for the rest of their life. Imagine a child growing up in a household where the lights are shut off because the bills weren't paid, or where dinner consists of the cheapest, least nutritious food available. Day after day, the phrase "we can't afford that" echoes through the walls. For this child, lack is not an anomaly, it's a permanent state of being. The most dangerous part: the child doesn't just learn that they don't have enough, they internalize the message that this lack is normal. It becomes a lens through which they view the world. Lack is not a temporary condition to be solved, it is the fabric of their reality. Dr. Bruce Lipton, a renowned cell biologist, explains that during the first 7 years of life, children operate in a brainwave state known as theta. This state is highly suggestible, almost hypnotic. During this period, children are like sponges, absorbing everything around them without resistance. The messages they receive, whether spoken, implied, or learned through observation, are stored directly in the subconscious mind. If the environment is filled with fear, stress, and limitation, the child doesn't just learn about poverty, they become poverty. This early conditioning is far more than just external circumstances. It becomes their inner blueprint. It shapes how they will relate to money, effort, risk, and opportunity for the rest of their lives. They will fear having money because they have learned that it might disappear at any moment. They will resist abundance because it feels foreign and unattainable. And perhaps most devastating of all, they will sabotage opportunities because they don't believe they deserve any better. Consider your own childhood. Were you taught that rich people are selfish or greedy, that success comes from luck, not effort, that money is inherently bad, or that wanting too much is sinful? These are the beliefs that children absorb without realizing it, and as they grow older, they start to live according to these unspoken laws. The more they hear these ideas repeated, the more they solidify into truths that govern their behavior. And the most insidious part, these beliefs are rarely questioned, because they are never recognized as beliefs. They are simply the way life is. They become so deeply embedded in the subconscious that even as adults, people continue to live by these rules without ever stopping to ask whether they are true. This subconscious programming becomes the lens through which everything is filtered. Effort, money, success, even self-worth. Every time a person tries to move beyond their limitations, every time they have an opportunity to break free, they face an invisible wall built from these early lessons. They may not even be aware of the wall, but it's there, silently governing every decision, every action, and every thought. When we speak of poverty, it's easy to focus solely on the financial aspect, on the lack of money, food, or material goods. But poverty is far more than that. It is a belief system, a mindset that becomes so deeply ingrained in the individual that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you are taught from birth that you deserve nothing more, how can you ever reach for something greater? In the next part, we'll dive into how these beliefs are reinforced over time, not just by families, but by the larger structures around us: education systems, media, and culture. These systems all work together to ensure that poverty remains not just an external condition, but an internal reality as well. The journey from survival to creation is possible, but it begins with recognizing and undoing these invisible systems of control. The beliefs we hold about money don't just exist in a vacuum. They are deeply entwined with our sense of self-worth, our identity, and our value in society. These beliefs are not just about numbers on a bank statement or the size of our paycheck. They are about who we believe we are in relation to the world around us. And from an early age, these beliefs are shaped by the people around us, the culture we grow up in, and, most dangerously, the underlying social narratives that tell us who gets to be wealthy and why. Let's take a moment to consider some of the beliefs many people are taught as children. How often are we told that rich people are greedy, that money is the root of all evil, or that success is something that happens only to those who are lucky, not to those who work hard? These messages are passed down through family members, teachers, and peers, often in casual conversation or through media. Over time, they become ingrained as truths. As a child, hearing that money doesn't grow on trees, or rich people are selfish, doesn't just teach you about wealth, it teaches you about yourself. It's an indirect lesson in limitation, one that tells you that you, too, are bound by the same rules. If wealth is the domain of the greedy, the evil, or the lucky, then surely you have no place in that world. This message is powerful because it reinforces the very belief that wealth is unattainable or, even worse, undeserved. But the danger doesn't end there. The beliefs about money that we internalize can lead to a warped understanding of our relationship with both abundance and scarcity. Take, for example, the deep-rooted belief that money changes people. This idea has been perpetuated for generations, often depicted in movies, books, and media, where the wealthy are shown to be morally corrupt, ruthless, or disconnected from humanity. The underlying message is clear: if you gain wealth, you risk losing your soul. This false dichotomy, the idea that wealth and virtue are incompatible, creates an internal conflict for those wanting to rise out of poverty. If your core belief is that wealth equals moral compromise, then achieving financial success becomes a moral struggle. People begin to sabotage their own growth, fearing that financial success will isolate them from their roots, from their family, and from the values that have been instilled in them. They reject wealth, not because they don't desire it, but because they've been taught to fear the very idea of it. This fear of success is not only a personal battle, but a societal one. In communities where poverty is the norm, the reinforcement of these beliefs is constant. When someone from such a community begins to rise above their circumstances, whether by starting a business, pursuing higher education, or simply aspiring for more, they often face resistance, not only from society, but from their own families and peers. "People like us don't do things like that" becomes a common refrain, spoken not out of malice but out of fear. The fear that any form of success might mean leaving behind the very community that shaped you, the very people who raised you. But this belief is rooted in the illusion of scarcity. The idea that there is only so much wealth to go around, and if one person succeeds, it takes away from others. This is the myth that perpetuates the cycle of poverty. It makes people believe that if they try to get ahead, they are somehow taking away from someone else's opportunity. This is a dangerous lie, one that keeps people stuck in their place, thinking that ambition and success are selfish acts. And so, people stay small, not because they lack the potential, but because they have been taught that their potential is dangerous, that it is too much for the world to handle, and that the pursuit of success is a betrayal of their community and their roots. But what if this mindset could be changed? What if, instead of believing that money corrupts, we could believe that money amplifies who we already are? What if success was seen as a tool not for self-aggrandizement, but for making a broader impact, for helping others, for creating opportunities where none existed before? As we move deeper into this discussion, we'll explore how this limiting mindset is not just a personal problem, but a systemic one. The media, culture, and even the very systems that we rely on reinforce these beliefs, ensuring that the cycle of poverty continues. It's time to challenge the narrative, to break free from the programming, and to realize that the barriers that keep people from success are not a reflection of their true potential, but a result of deeply embedded beliefs that can be unlearned. When we think of poverty, we often think of the obvious lack of money, food, or shelter. But the true depth of poverty goes beyond the physical. It reaches deep into the psyche, affecting how people see themselves, their possibilities, and their place in the world. This is where psychological theories like Maslow's hierarchy of needs provide profound insights. Abraham Maslow, the renowned psychologist, introduced a theory of human motivation that has become a cornerstone of understanding human behavior. His model, often depicted as a pyramid, suggests that humans must first fulfill their most basic physiological needs: food, water, shelter, and safety, before they can focus on higher-level needs, such as love, esteem, and self-act. For someone living in poverty, this hierarchy becomes not just a theory, but a lived reality. They may be struggling to meet basic survival needs, keeping the lights on, putting food on the table, or ensuring that their family is safe. When survival is the main concern, there is little room for anything else. Self-actualization, the process of realizing one's full potential, becomes a distant dream, something that others do, not people who are struggling day to day. Maslow's model explains why people trapped in poverty are often unable to dream beyond their immediate survival. When you're in constant fear of not having enough to meet your basic needs, it's almost impossible to focus on long-term goals or personal growth. The stress and anxiety that come with survival mode leave little energy for pursuing education, starting a business, or working toward the type of success that can lift you out of poverty. In fact, many families entrenched in poverty are so focused on getting through each month that they don't have the mental or emotional capacity to even consider alternative paths. Take the example of a family that can barely make ends meet. Their conversations are filled with stress and frustration. "We can't afford that. We just have to make it to payday," or "I'm just lucky to have a job." These words aren't just statements, they are reflections of a mindset shaped by the ongoing struggle for survival. They form the lens through which the family views the world. This focus on short-term survival, this constant state of stress, prevents families from focusing on the bigger picture. They don't have the luxury of thinking about investments, growth, or future opportunities. Instead, they are caught in a loop of stress, fear, and insecurity that makes it nearly impossible to break free. The inability to dream bigger is compounded by the social and economic structures that reinforce this cycle. For example, the education system in low-income communities often reinforces this struggle. Schools are underfunded, overcrowded, and lack resources. Students aren't taught how to think critically about money, wealth, or value creation. They are often trained to memorize facts, follow orders, and prepare for jobs that only help them survive, not thrive. And then there's the added complication of societal expectations. When people are stuck at the bottom of Maslow's pyramid, constantly fighting to meet their basic needs, they are rarely encouraged to think outside the box or pursue goals beyond their immediate circumstances. Instead, they are taught to stay within the boundaries of what is possible in their current situation, limiting their aspirations to jobs that only provide enough to get by. But why is this so? Why does society, in many cases, discourage people from thinking bigger, from rising above their immediate circumstances? The answer is both systemic and intentional. A society built on keeping people in survival mode benefits from this mindset. When people are focused on getting through the day, they are less likely to challenge the status quo, to question the systems that have kept them in poverty, or to fight for greater opportunities. The truth is that when people are in survival mode, they are more predictable, more manageable, and less likely to push back against systems that benefit from their labor. Those in power, whether it be the wealthy, corporations, or governments, understand that a population focused on survival is much easier to control than one that is empowered, educated, and free to pursue its own goals. But here's the paradox. While survival mode may seem like an inevitable part of life for many, it's not an unchangeable fate. People can shift from survival to creation, from scarcity to abundance, but it requires a shift in mindset, a recognition that survival is not all there is. People can, and do, break free from the cycle of poverty. And this shift begins when they start to see themselves as capable of reaching for something greater. In the next part, we'll explore how these beliefs about poverty are reinforced, not just by the individual and the family, but by the very systems around us: the media, culture, and education. These systems work together to keep people in survival mode, and breaking free requires an understanding of how these societal structures reinforce the poverty mindset. The journey from survival to creation is not just about personal willpower or determination, is also about the structures that shape our thinking and opportunities. One of the most powerful and insidious systems that perpetuates the cycle of poverty is the education system. Schools, especially in low-income communities, do not simply fail to provide opportunities, they actively reinforce the belief that certain people are destined for survival, not success. The education system itself becomes a conveyor belt, moving children from one year to the next, teaching them to follow orders, memorize facts, and aspire to jobs that only ensure they can make it to the next paycheck. In underfunded schools, the resources are limited. The classrooms are overcrowded. Teachers, often underpaid and overburdened, struggle to give each student the attention they need. But the lack of resources is just the beginning. More troubling is what is not taught. Critical thinking, financial literacy, entrepreneurial skills, and the ability to create value in the world. These are the skills that could potentially break someone out of the cycle of poverty, yet they are seldom taught in schools that serve low-income communities. Instead, children are trained to be obedient, compliant, and to do what they are told. The lesson here is simple: follow the rules, work hard, and stay loyal. It's a blueprint for surviving in a world where success and ownership are reserved for a select few. In contrast, schools in wealthier areas often teach their students how to think critically, how to invest, how to create, and most importantly, how to manage and grow their wealth. They are given the tools and the mindset to break out of the traditional model of survival. But for those trapped in poverty, the reality is different. The system tells them that their role is to serve, not to lead. Their education is focused on preparing them for a job that will give them just enough to survive, not to thrive. This is not an accident. It's part of a larger societal design that keeps the wheels of economic inequality turning. The education system is not just about imparting knowledge, it's about reinforcing social roles. As Noam Chomsky, a linguist and political theorist, once said, the education system is a system of imposed ignorance. It's a system designed to keep people in their place, to ensure that they remain loyal to the structures of power and control. In many ways, the education system is an extension of the economic system, both of which are designed to ensure that people remain in the same socio-economic class for generations. But it's not just about the lack of financial literacy or entrepreneurial training. It's about the deeper message that the education system sends. In families entrenched in poverty, the focus is on survival. Conversations are not about investments, future planning, or building wealth. They are about making it to the end of the month, holding on to the job you have, and avoiding disaster. When the focus is on survival, there's no mental space left for thinking about anything beyond immediate needs. This is where the most dangerous part of the education system comes in. It doesn't just fail to teach financial literacy, it actually discourages it. It discourages independent thinking, problem solving, and risk-taking, all of which are essential to breaking free from poverty. The message is clear: stay within the boundaries of what is safe, what is known, and what is familiar. Don't think outside the box, don't challenge the status quo, and most importantly, don't try to rise above your circumstances, because that's not your role. Your role is to stay in line, do the work, and get paid just enough to survive. And yet, despite these overwhelming forces, there are still those who rise above the system. People who, against all odds, break free from the cycle of poverty and create something greater for themselves and their families. But they are the exception, not the rule. They are the ones who challenge the conditioning, who ask questions, and who reject the narrative that has been handed to them. These individuals don't just rise financially, they rise mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. They create a new story, a new legacy that is no longer defined by the limitations of their upbringing. But the truth is, for most people in low-income communities, the system has already done its work. By the time they reach adulthood, they have already been conditioned to accept their place in the economic hierarchy. They have been taught that wealth is for the few, that success is a matter of luck, and that their role in life is to work hard for a fixed income and be grateful for what they have. The system has convinced them that this is all they deserve. However, breaking free from this system is not impossible. It starts with recognizing that this conditioning exists and that it can be unlearned. It starts with questioning the beliefs about money, work, and success that have been passed down through generations. It starts with understanding that the education system, though it may have failed to teach financial literacy, does not have to define your future. You have the power to rewrite your own script. In the next part, we will explore the societal resistance to breaking free from poverty, not just from external forces, but from within communities themselves. We'll see how the very people who mean well often end up reinforcing the cycle of poverty, unintentionally holding others back from reaching their full potential. One of the most powerful forces that keep people trapped in poverty is not just the external systems, but also the attitudes and beliefs within their own families and communities. It's one thing to be told by society that success is out of reach, that opportunities are scarce, or that the game is rigged. But when those same messages come from the people you love and trust most, the impact is devastating. Imagine you've grown up in a community where dreams of financial success, personal growth, or starting a business are seen as unrealistic, as something reserved for other people. The messages are subtle but constant. People like us don't do things like that. Why get your hopes up? Or just be happy with what you have? These are not just words, they are anchors, deeply rooted in the collective belief system of a community entrenched in survival mode. When someone from this environment begins to dream bigger, whether it's starting a business, pursuing an advanced education, or simply seeking a life outside the constraints they were born into, they are often met with resistance, not necessarily from malicious or unsupportive family members, but from well-meaning individuals who are simply too conditioned by their own experiences to understand the dreams of others. They might say, "Don't get too ambitious, just focus on surviving," or "That's not for people like us. You should be grateful for what you have." This resistance is often disguised as advice. It's wrapped in concern for safety, for avoiding disappointment, and for staying grounded. But the truth is that this advice, though well-meaning, serves as a shackle. It keeps people tied to the limitations of their environment, reinforcing the belief that their dreams and ambitions are not only unattainable, but also inappropriate. Know your place becomes the unspoken rule, and any attempt to break free is met with the warning, "Don't forget where you came from." This creates a profound internal conflict. The desire for more, whether it's financial success, personal freedom, or simply a better life, begins to feel like a betrayal. People raised in poverty are often taught to be humble, to be grateful for what they have, and to never aspire for more than what is handed to them. When they step outside of this narrow view, they can feel guilty, ashamed, or even afraid. The fear isn't always about failure, it's about alienation. It's the fear that if they succeed, they will lose their connection to the people and the community that shaped them. Success starts to feel like a way of leaving people behind. They fear that rising above their circumstances will mean leaving their family, their friends, or their roots behind. And so, they hold back. They self-sabotage it. They choose security over growth, because growth feels like a dangerous leap into the unknown. But here lies the paradox. By not growing, by not seeking more, they are denying their own potential. The very people who love them, who want to keep them safe, are inadvertently holding them back. This is the silent trap of generational poverty. It's not just about economic limitations, but about the emotional and psychological limitations passed down through generations. However, it's important to recognize that this resistance is not rooted in malice. It is born from fear and survival. People who have never experienced financial success, who have been stuck in the cycle of survival for their entire lives, can't fathom the possibility that someone from their community might rise above that. They fear that if one person succeeds, it will highlight their own inability to break free. In this way, success becomes not just a personal journey, but a social threat. This is where the true power of breaking free from poverty lies, not just in personal effort, but in changing the way a community views success. To rise above the limitations set by family and society is an act of profound courage. It requires not just defying the odds, but also redefining what success means. It requires showing others that it's possible to thrive, to grow, and to still remain connected to one's roots. The fear of alienation is real, but so is the potential for transformation. By embracing the desire for success and wealth, individuals don't just change their own lives, they can change the lives of everyone around them. Breaking free from the cycle of poverty is not a betrayal. It's a beacon of hope for those still stuck in the struggle. In the next part, we'll look at how society itself, through the media, culture, and the very systems that govern our lives, reinforces the belief that some people are destined for poverty, while others are born to succeed. These systems are not neutral. They actively shape our understanding of success, wealth, and what it means to live a prosperous life. We'll explore how these societal forces work together to keep the poor mentally enslaved, creating a cycle that feels impossible to break. But with awareness comes the power to change. In our journey through the invisible systems of control that perpetuate poverty, we've seen how the beliefs we internalize about money, success, and self-worth are deeply shaped by childhood experiences, family influence, and societal structures. But now, let's reframe the entire concept of poverty itself. What if poverty is not a personal failure, but a curriculum, a deeply ingrained set of lessons that have been taught to each generation, shaping how they perceive their place in the world? Think about this. What if everything you've been taught about wealth and survival, about success and failure, about who gets to thrive and who must settle, isn't a reflection of your inherent worth or potential, but simply a system of lessons passed down through the generations? What if these lessons were learned behaviors, ingrained so deeply that they have become the very foundation of how you see yourself and your future? The idea that poverty is a curriculum challenges the conventional view of poverty as a result of personal failure. It turns the narrative on its head and says, poverty is not an accident. It's not a result of laziness or incompetence. Instead, it is the result of a series of lessons, often subtle, sometimes harsh, that are handed down through families, communities, and even entire societies. These lessons teach people what they can and cannot achieve, what they are and are not worthy of, and most importantly, what they believe is possible for themselves. For many, this curriculum begins early in life. Children raised in poverty are taught the language of scarcity. They hear phrases like, "We can't afford that," or "money doesn't grow on trees," repeatedly. These aren't just comments about money, they are lessons about the limits of what is possible. As these children grow, they internalize these lessons, building an identity around the idea of scarcity and survival. They begin to see their own limitations as permanent, rather than temporary obstacles. This is where the idea of poverty as a curriculum becomes especially powerful. These lessons are learned, not born into. The child who grows up in a home where survival is the primary concern learns to prioritize short-term stability over long-term growth. They learn to focus on the here and now, to worry about making it to the end of the month, to fixate on immediate survival. The lesson they absorb, that life is a series of problems to be solved in the moment, not an opportunity to plan for the future. This is not to say that people in poverty are failing in some way. They are simply operating under a different set of rules, a set of rules that has been ingrained over generations. It's a set of rules that teaches them to stay small, to stay safe, and to stay within the bounds of what is considered normal for their community. And for many, these rules feel like an unchangeable part of their identity. But the good news is this: once you recognize that these rules are not inherent to your character, that they are learned behaviors and beliefs, you can begin to unlearn them. You can rewrite the curriculum of poverty that has been passed down to you. You can replace the lessons of scarcity with the lessons of abundance. You can replace fear with hope, limitation with possibility, and survival with creation. This process of unlearning is not easy. It requires a deep level of self-awareness and courage to challenge everything you have been taught. It requires questioning the beliefs that have shaped your identity, your decisions, and your understanding of the world. But this process is not only possible, it's essential for breaking free from the cycle of poverty. And here lies the most empowering truth. If poverty is a curriculum, then it's one that can be rewritten. If your current beliefs and circumstances are based on what you have learned, then the most powerful thing you can do is start teaching yourself new lessons. You don't need to accept the script handed to you by society, by your family, or by your environment. You have the power to rewrite it, to create a new narrative for yourself and for future generations. In the next part, we'll explore how the external systems of media, culture, and even religion play a role in reinforcing this curriculum of poverty. These societal forces shape our beliefs and reinforce the idea that poverty is a permanent state, but they can be challenged and changed. When we recognize these external influences, we gain the power to break free from them and create a new future. As we've seen, poverty is not simply a financial condition, it's a mindset, a set of deeply ingrained beliefs about what is possible and who is worthy of success. But this mindset doesn't exist in isolation. It is constantly reinforced by the world around us. The media, culture, and societal structures play a crucial role in maintaining the poverty mindset by shaping how we view success, wealth, and our place in society. From the moment we are born, we are inundated with messages about who gets to be rich and who gets to succeed. These messages are not always explicit. They don't always say, "You can't have money," or "Success is for the few." Instead, they are woven into the fabric of our culture, reinforced by movies, TV shows, music, advertising, and even social media. The stories we are told over and over again shape our beliefs about wealth and success, often in ways we don't even realize. In many mainstream narratives, wealth is either unattainable or morally corrupt. The rich are often portrayed as villains, ruthless, selfish, and out of touch with the struggles of ordinary people. On the other hand, the poor are depicted as humble, virtuous, and hardworking. These stereotypes are not accidents. They are the result of cultural norms that link wealth with moral corruption and poverty with moral purity. Money, in many stories, is shown as something that changes people for the worse. It's a corrupting influence, a symbol of greed and exploitation. But here's the danger. These portrayals create a false dichotomy between goodness and wealth. They imply that in order to be a good person, you must reject material success, or at least never pursue it too seriously. The result is a cognitive dissonance for those who want to break free from poverty, but also fear that doing so will make them morally compromised. This conflict between the desire for success and the belief that wealth is inherently bad creates a deep inner struggle. Those who are raised to see money as evil or greedy begin to sabotage their own growth, because deep down, achieving financial success feels wrong. They fear that by pursuing wealth, they will lose their sense of self, their identity, and their moral compass. Success becomes a source of guilt rather than empowerment. This fear of success is not just internal, it is reflected in how society responds to individuals who break free from the poverty mindset. When someone from a low-income background starts to achieve success, society often pushes back. People are quick to label them as sellouts or selfish for seeking more than what was expected of them. The very community that should be supporting their success can become their biggest obstacle, reinforcing the belief that they should remain humble and grateful for whatever they have, no matter how little. And it's not just the media that perpetuates these beliefs. Consumer culture plays a huge role as well. In modern society, we are bombarded daily with images of luxury, status, and pleasure, all tied to consumption. The goal isn't to empower individuals financially, it's to keep them chasing the illusion of wealth. People are taught that success means having the latest gadgets, wearing brand-name clothes, or posting pictures that make them look wealthy even if their bank accounts say otherwise. This constant bombardment of consumption-driven messaging keeps people in a cycle of emotional spending and financial dependence. It keeps them distracted, constantly chasing the next material fix, but never actually accumulating wealth. Instead of being taught to invest, create, and build, people are taught to consume, to spend on liabilities that drain their resources, rather than assets that generate wealth. The rich don't just buy things, they buy assets, things that appreciate in value and generate income. Poor and middle-class people, on the other hand, are taught to buy things that drain their money, things that lose value over time. This difference in mindset is critical. Financial literacy, the knowledge of how money works, how to build wealth, and how to manage resources is seldom taught in schools, especially in low-income communities. Instead, society pushes a narrative that encourages instant gratification, emotional spending, and financial dependence. The truth is, many of the systems that keep people poor profit from their struggle. Payday loan companies, credit card corporations, and predatory lenders all benefit from people who are uninformed, overwhelmed, and desperate. Even industries like education and healthcare can profit from the financial insecurity that many people face. These industries have built business models on the backs of people who are caught in the cycle of financial struggle. But there's a deeper truth here. The system benefits from keeping people in this cycle of struggle because it ensures a steady supply of workers, consumers, and debtors who will continue to fuel the economy from the bottom up. It ensures that wealth stays concentrated at the top, with the powerful few profiting from the labor and consumption of the many. In the next part, we'll explore how the system creates financial dependency and how it makes people believe that struggle is noble, that ambition is selfish, and that wealth is out of reach. We'll examine how societal programming works to make us comfortable with our limitations and how the system benefits from our ignorance. But the most important lesson is this: awareness is the first step in breaking free. Once you realize that the system is designed to keep you small, you can start to unlearn its rules and rewrite your own path. As we continue to unravel the systems that keep people trapped in poverty, one of the most insidious elements is the role that consumer culture plays in maintaining financial dependence. We live in a world where success is often equated with having more, but not necessarily with owning anything of value. The constant push to consume, to buy, spend, and accumulate is a key tool in keeping people poor. But it's not just about having things. It's about the addiction to acquiring things that often take us further away from true financial independence. Every day, we are bombarded with advertisements, images, and messages that encourage us to buy the latest gadgets, or the newest fashion, or show off the appearance of wealth. The goal of these marketing campaigns isn't to help you build wealth or to empower you financially. It's to make you feel inadequate, to create a need for things that you don't truly need, and to get you to spend your money on temporary fixes for deeper emotional and psychological issues. This is not just about materialism, it's about emotional dependency. The illusion of wealth, created by consumer culture, keeps people trapped in a cycle of spending. The more you buy, the more you are convinced that these purchases will fill a void. Yet, instead of feeling empowered, you feel more financially drained and stuck, without the long-term satisfaction that true financial independence can bring. The concept of keeping up with the Joneses, the social pressure to match the lifestyle and possessions of others ingrained in modern culture. You don't just buy a new phone because you need it. You buy it because it signifies success in the eyes of others. You don't just wear the latest brand. You wear it because it projects an image of affluence, regardless of your financial reality. But the real cost of this addiction to consumption is hidden. People spend money they don't have on things that lose value over time. They buy liabilities, things that cost them money rather than assets that would generate income or appreciate in value. This is the primary difference between the wealthy and those struggling financially. The wealthy invest in things that grow their money, while the poor are taught to spend on things that drain it. This financial addiction is carefully cultivated. We are taught that success is not about building long-term wealth or financial security. It's about instant gratification. It's about looking wealthy, feeling wealthy, and spending in ways that project wealth to others, even when the reality is that our bank accounts tell a different story. The system profits from this addiction. The credit card companies, payday lenders, and even major corporations are built on people's financial dependency. The more people borrow, the more the system profits. The more people consume, the more the economy grows, but the individual's wealth remains stagnant, or worse, in decline. These financial systems are designed to keep you in a state of perpetual struggle, convincing you that wealth is for the few and that financial independence is a distant dream. The more you buy, the more you are tied to the system. But the truth is, the system doesn't need you to become wealthy, it needs you to stay in debt. It needs you to keep consuming, to keep borrowing, to keep spending. But here's the truth. Breaking free from this cycle requires a shift in mindset. It requires understanding that true wealth is not about appearances or the fleeting satisfaction of new purchases. It's about owning assets, making investments that grow in value, and learning how to make money work for you rather than working for money. The good news is that this shift is possible. People who have broken free from this cycle understand that wealth is created through long-term planning, not through short-term spending. They know that the real secret to financial independence is delayed gratification, resisting the urge to spend now in order to invest in something that will appreciate in the future. This is the lesson that many in low-income communities never get to learn, but it is the one lesson that can change everything. By shifting from a mindset of consumption to one of investment, people can begin to accumulate wealth. They can stop spending on liabilities and start investing in assets, things like real estate, stocks, businesses, or even their own education. This mindset shift is crucial in breaking free from the cycle of financial dependence. It requires looking beyond the immediate gratification of new purchases and seeing the bigger picture where true wealth is built over time, not overnight. In the next part, we will explore how these systems of financial addiction are reinforced by the broader culture and economy, and how they work to maintain the status quo. We will also look at how these structures can be disrupted, and how individuals can begin to take control of their financial future by understanding the real mechanics of wealth creation.